You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in. We were really
a Mamamia podcast.
In September 2020, 32-year-old Annabel Walker was sentenced to 18 months in prison on a string of fraud and deception convictions. She stole $17,000 from her former employer, hotel operator Australian Leisure Group, by using a corporate credit card. She sold things on Facebook Marketplace, but never posted the items. She used other people's money to pay for rent, bills and clothes.
I would say, it would have been about 25 grand in total.
And she hurt a lot of people. Now, well, she's out of prison and she wants a second chance. I'm Mia Friedman and you're listening to No Filter, an interview podcast from Mamamia with people who tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. So how do you interview a person who was sent to prison for lying? How do you know if they're telling you the truth? Like really telling the truth? Annabel reached out to us here at Mamamia, wanting to share her story. And on the show today, we talk about the crimes she committed.
So it all sort of just became this huge web of, excuse my language, but crap.
We talk about her life in prison.
I thought nothing is ever going to get worse than this moment.
And the people she hurt.
I'm sorry.
And before we get into this episode, Annabel has been to prison and knows she was never innocent. She was not paid for this interview. There was no money exchanged in any form. And this interview is not a plea for sympathy. It's not a platform for excuses. And it's not a fact-checked account of the truth. It's Annabel's story, unadorned. Belle, the day that you were sentenced, tell me how that day began.
I knew I was in big trouble, but I was convinced that it was going to pay off and that my letter of apology and everything, and that I'd never had an intensive corrections order. Like, I thought that I was going to get community...
Do you mean because you had no prison record?
No.
Or...
And the duty solicitor that was on said to me, there's no chance I'll send you. So I thought, oh, okay, this is starting to look up. I was unrepresented last minute.
What happened with your lawyer?
Oh, I had 3 different lawyers. It was a disaster. I couldn't actually pay the last $10,000 the night before.
So you represented yourself?
Yes. The magistrate actually said to me, do you want to go for an adjournment? And I just at this point, I'd had enough. I was at my wit's end, like the week before, never had depression in my life, but I was at the point where I was probably too deep, but like almost suicidal. Like I needed it to be over. And that's probably one of the hardest feelings you can ever think is jail, the worst thing that could happen to me.
So when you got the sentence, were you surprised?
I was. I just thought, surely not. But then from the moment I was taken, my brain just switched over and I went into, okay, this is what's happening. You know, I had no idea to even Google what is jail like.
So you hadn't done any preparations?
Nothing. And like I knew there was a slim chance, but I had no time to Google. I was that manic about everything else.
Media reports at the time said that your parents were in the courtroom.
Yes.
And that you called out, don't worry, I deserve this.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So at that point, when I saw the doors open behind me when she was reading out the sentence, I've been told before that that's when the sheriffs are coming to cuff you. My heart just sunk and I thought, oh my God, like I'm gone. And I looked at my mum and my mum is like, I love my dad too, but my mum is my whole world. Her face, she couldn't even look up. She was so devastated and her best friend was with us. And I just thought, you know what? I have done some terrible things, but it is finally caught up and I deserve to be punished, whatever they see fit. And if that means sending me to prison and I pay my price and I've got to accept it. But to say to my mum, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, this is not okay that I'm going. Like,
I'm innocent.
No, I never once said I was innocent. And that's something I'll always take with me as in like pride because I was honest about that and it was probably the only thing that I was honest about.
What happens after they cuff you? What do handcuffs feel like, first of all?
Terrible. So I've like tiny wrists and I was really fortunate that I had time to give my mum my handbag. I started taking my jewellery off. So I was cuffed. They're the heaviest, clunky, right in front of you, and I was put downstairs 3 stories below the Downing Centre. And then you sit in a tiny confined space and you're thinking, am I getting a welfare call? Can I apply for appeals bail? Which is, I only learnt about these things once I got into jail. Like the women in there know more about the legal system than...
But at the time that you were sitting there, does
No.
anyone talk to you? Does
No.
anyone tell you what's going to happen?
I got strip searched, my property all taken away. You're given the minimal. I think they want you to know, look, this is where you're going and it's not going to be easy. There was some cruel times with that. Like I think some people might have a little chip on their shoulder and think, I'm going to play God and make this tough for someone. And I was in my like black dress, you know, from court, my stockings, and I was then sent to Surrey Hills for 2 nights because there wasn't room at Silverwater. So you're in a holding cell with 5 other women. And I walked in hysterical and they were so worried they actually put me in the clinic part for a good day.
What were the other women like? Were they sympathetic?
No. So there's 2 kinds of people in jail. There's the ones that look at you and just see that you're suffering or you might be weak and they want to help you. And then there's ones that see that as, I'm going to walk all over you. So I was put in with 3 women that had been in prison before in the holding cell. So I started asking a million questions about what it was going to be like. But there was only 2 mattresses for 5 people. So then I luckily met this one woman who I ended up being with for 6 weeks as a cellmate, and I slept in the mattress with her and literally we were both just there hysterically crying.
So she hadn't been to prison before?
No.
Did you know which prison you were going to go to?
No, had no idea. All I was told from Surrey Hills is that you'll be taken when there's a space to Silverwater, and then I was told I'd be sent to a farm, which I thought, being a low category inmate, that I'd be going to. Literally in my head I had, oh, it can't be that bad, it must be sort of like farm. No. It went from super like maximum prison to then when you get to Dilwinia, which is where I was, which is in Windsor, it is meant to be a low to medium security prison, but it's not. I was a category 2, but then a 4 is sort of murder and things. You're all blended together. Whereas in the men's system, they don't have that.
Do you remember the first time you took money that wasn't yours?
Yeah, I do. It was putting something on a card of one of my parents. And I remember thinking, shit, you know, this is a breach of trust. And you think from that moment that that would have been it. And my biggest problem was not addressing it then when it got so bad that I was the saying robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was constantly trying to keep up this life and lifestyle that I was in, but I didn't do it the right way.
What were you buying? Like, did you work?
Yes, I was working.
What did you need money for?
Do you know, a lot of it was like rent or things that I wasn't earning enough for, clothes, or that was when I was younger. When I was older, it got to like being bills, or I got like a fraud charge and then I had to start paying that back. So it all sort of just became this huge web of, excuse my language, but crap that I just could not get on top of. And that's the one thing I'm thankful for going to prison for, and I never thought I'd say I'm thankful for going to prison, but everything like had happened that needed to come to light did. And even though the media can spin, you know, stories living this life, living that life, wasn't living a lot of those lives. But at the end of the day, who cares? I did the wrong thing. And as I said, when I got sentenced, I did deserve to pay for what I did.
That first time that you put money on your parents' credit card or you used their credit card to buy something, did you get away with it?
No.
They caught you?
Yes.
And what happened?
I think I said something like, I knew this monthly statement or something was coming and I thought, oh my God, I've got to say something. Then I remember getting in trouble and having to pay it back, and I did. But then it just spiraled.
Before each time you would commit a fraud, how would you feel?
Do you know what? I never once felt good, and there were so many times where I thought, you know, I can't do this or I'm not going to do this. But then it was usually to get myself out of something else or someone off my back. And there were things that I didn't have to get people off my back for, don't get me wrong. I'm by no means, you know, I'll never pretend to be, oh, I just did this to get myself this and was always in trouble. No, I was selfish. And I think you're in fight or flight mode when you're making a decision like that. A lot of my problem was I was just running on adrenaline, so it could have gone one way or another so quickly. And that's a really big problem for people, I think, these days too. Living in fight or flight, like just the world we live in. You can act irrationally, but your whole world can change in 2 seconds.
So after your parents, what happened after that?
I got in trouble with a rent issue. in Paddington. It was for a family member, and I just remember them cutting me off. Yeah, it was gutting, but I'd started to lose a lot. I think the hard thing is I started to get a very bad, reputation. There's so many people you lose, and you sit in prison and you have a lot of time to think, and you think about all those people that you hurt or you could have not hurt, like you're saying, and that's probably the worst thing. At the end of the day, you're left with no one, and you're also left with your own feelings of thinking, I'm a terrible person.
Have you reached out to some of those people?
I have. I wrote a couple of letters while I was in prison, and I haven't heard anything back, which I don't expect to be honest.
What did you say in those letters?
I said in those letters how sorry I was for what I did. I tried to make sense of I wasn't well when I made those choices. One, I regret it completely, and if I had my time over, I wouldn't do that again. But I also tried to say that, I've come here for a reason, and I hope that one day me helping other people after going into a place like that, if I can help one person's life, the people that I hurt might think it happened for a reason.
Do you know how much money you stole?
Gosh, there's articles saying 20,000, this, that, the other. So with my work, it was a build-up of lots of different things, and I didn't physically have the money. A lot of the time it was putting invoices in and the money would go somewhere else. I would say, it would have been about 25 grand in total.
So again, a lot of the coverage around the time of the trial said that there were a lot of people that never went to the police because they were so embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe family, maybe friends, ex-partners.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. And that is something that I live with every day. I sometimes wonder, in a way I would love those people to send me a message and to say, look, I was so angry at you, so that I know that they actually, you want to be told someone's disappointed in you, because at least then you can start to sort of try and get somewhere with someone. A lot of the people I don't think right now would ever trust me this second, but everything I look at revolves back to time. Time is what everything's going to take, and I just can't wait to prove to everyone that I'm not the same person that I was, and my web of destruction is gone.
Do you have trouble distinguishing the truth from a lie?
At that time I did, yes, but I don't know how to explain it. When you're in that mind frame, you do anything to survive or do anything to try and get out of something or get into something or this, that and the other. But no, I don't think sitting here today, I feel like my mind has gone the other way, where I pull everything apart so much because I want things to be nothing's ever going to be normal. I've gone to jail, but for my new normal, it is about honesty and rebuilding, and that might be hard for some people to believe, but I know that they'll see it in time.
Why did you want to talk to me today?
It's not about me so much. It's about the women over the side of the wall that the regular world have no idea what's going on. And there's so many things that could be done to help these people. And, it sounds like such a cliche, girl goes to prison and decides to help the world or help the thing. I don't care if that's what people think. I will never unsee what I saw in there, and I will never view the world the same. What we see as bad and what they see as bad are two very different things. And, coming out of jail is huge. Walking down the street, I feel like I hear a noise and I think there's an officer. I think people are watching. Just to adjust is really hard. Imagine doing that when you have a drug addiction. All these people come out and they've got nowhere to go. No wonder they end up back in jail. There's no program to help you prepare for release, and there's nothing to follow up other than parole, which is not a rehabilitation program.
When did you know that things were closing in on you?
I would say it was exactly a year before I got sentenced.
What was the first sign?
I got charged with the crime, my work-related crime.
And what was that crime?
I committed fraud in the company that I worked for.
How did you get caught?
I got caught because firstly, it was obvious that something was going wrong. I just said, I'm in shit.
How much did you take from?
So that would have been about 15 grand. So some of the things were invoices that just weren't paid, so companies were out of pocket. That's never going to be healed, and I'm never going to, make my boss or people think it was a one-off mistake. It wasn't.
Did it happen a lot of times?
There was 8 charges.
Where were you when you got arrested?
I actually went in. The woman asked me to come in and talk to her. She was a detective and she was policewoman, I should say, lovely, as in tough. Most people say you should call a lawyer and not say anything. I said absolutely everything under the sun, and I think that was because I wanted to come clean.
Was it a relief?
It was a relief. Even sitting with you today, I think, God, like, when you say it out loud, you feel so judged, like, I can't believe I did what I did. But that it also, I'm not going to sit here and let that define my future or not build trust from what's happened.
Do you need a minute?
No, I'm okay.
Do you need a tissue? I'll pass the tissues over that way.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Can't be easy to talk about.
No, it's not. But, like, you know, you've got to be real at the end of the day. And I've broken relationships that mean the world to me, and I've let people down that I want in my life. And, you know, by even doing this, I just hope, you know, people don't let things get to the point that I did, because you can come back from it. Like, when I was in prison, I read about, I think I told you, Kerry Tucker, and she was in jail for fraud, and she's now a women's prison advocate. I thought, she can do this, I can do this, and you can come back from this. It's very hard once you've worn green to lose the stigma of I am a criminal, but that doesn't have to be who I am now. You know, I will always obviously have that title of you've gone to jail, but it doesn't mean that I can't do something positive with it and I can't earn back people's trust. And at the end of the day, I said to someone very special to me yesterday, I said, a lot of me while that was happening was the real me. Like, I am a really kind, caring person. It's probably one of my biggest flaws. I'd had such like low self-worth. I used to try and, you know, make everyone like me more. And that was a lot of it too. Like, I didn't need to go to restaurants. I didn't need to do things. You know, I was enough. And I wish I'd seen that.
Eating disorders, particularly anorexia, can be about maintaining a sense of control.
Yes.
I've heard that said about people who commit fraud as well, that by making up aliases and pretending to be various people, and was there an aspect of you trying to control your life or a feeling of control that you were trying to get?
No, I don't think so. I feel like I was so out of control. Like, an alias for me wasn't about controlling something. It was trying to get me out of something or get someone off my case.
When you would make up email accounts and pretend to be different people, would you feel scared when you were doing that?
Petrified.
Or would you feel exhilarated?
No, petrified. Thinking, what is the reply going to be to this and how is this going to end? There was not one part of me that got a thrill from it. It was more, this is a rabbit hole I'm going down now. How am I going to stop this or get out of this? Even though I started it, which is, what a joke.
I was going to say that for a lot of your crimes, you were obviously going to get caught. It's like what you said initially about your parents when you used their credit card. You knew that reckoning was coming, and yet you kept doing it. Do you understand why?
For me, everything, like, I've had a lot of time to sit and think. You know, I had 8 months of sitting and thinking about all this. I think for me, there was always something, like I said to you, I described it as that web of destruction. Like, I could not get it to end. And if it wasn't from, you know, what was currently happening, it was something that would pop up from years before. Like, it just would not go away.
What do you mean?
As in something that I'd done wrong or done wrong by someone. You run into someone and that resurfaces something else, and then you thought that was put to bed, and then nothing would ever be.
Do you mean you thought you got away with it and then it would come back?
Also more that I thought it had settled. Like, even people that, you know, I had paid back or things like that, you still run into someone and then they know someone and then that person says something and then it brings everything back up again, and then you're defending yourself. You're constantly living in this, you know, tangle.
I'm Mia Friedman and you're listening to No Filter with Annabel Walker. Who was the first person you told after you got arrested?
So I called one welfare call and I called my mum. I tried someone else, but they phone didn't answer. It was lucky that you remember something people should know if you're ever going to jail. Make sure you memorise people's phone numbers because you're not going to get one in
Who
here.
was the first person you tried to call?
My partner.
And you called your mum. What did you say?
I was just hysterical. And they said to me, if you don't sort of toughen up, you're going to be put in a RIT cell, which is cameraed padded walls, because you could be a harm to yourself. Because I was so hysterical. Like for the first month, I could not stop crying.
After you were arrested?
Yes.
But you were bailed, right?
Yes.
Did your mum have to come and bail you out?
No, I got bail myself. I think because I was so honest and open then, it sort of helped, I guess. It wasn't like I was, I'm not speaking until I've got a lawyer here. And that night, after I was arrested, it was my mum's birthday dinner, and I had to go and sit there and pretend that nothing had happened and I hadn't called her till,
When did you
Again,
call her and tell her?
the next day.
So you were charged, you got bail
Yes.
on your own.
Yeah.
You went to the birthday dinner.
Yeah. And then the next
And the next day you rang her.
Yeah. And said, I'm in shit.
And how did she react?
Imagine your daughter. Like, I know how much she loves me and she's the most unbelievable mum. And imagine hearing that and thinking, oh no, not again. But when I went to jail, I do think my relationship did change with a lot of people because I was paying for what I did, but also, as I said, everything came to light and I could start working on my relationships because I wasn't focusing on trying to get myself out of other problems.
Was she angry with you? Was she like, I can't believe you've done this again?
She didn't even say it like that. It was just silence. If you could describe like hearing a heart break, it was like that. You know how you just know when someone's heart's broken? And that was the same for my partner too, because there was so many times that he gave me the opportunity to come, like he would have helped me through a lot of it and I just couldn't tell. I was thinking, if I say what I need to say, you're going to leave and you're the love of my life.
Did you steal money from him as well?
Yes.
And his family?
From his family, no, that was my prior partner.
How did that relationship end? The one that you had at the time of your arrest?
He stuck by me through prison and was there for me through, you won't believe, like...
Are you still together now?
No, this is going to sound like the most cliche thing in the world, but I know that he is my person and I know he loves me too, but I've got a lot of work to do to prove to people that, also just for myself, I think the better version of myself is going to be the better version for someone else. So he stuck by me the whole way through prison and God, that
What did that look like?
Being on the phone every day, listening to me, the problems that you have in there, fearing for your safety, fearing... People don't believe what's going on because it's so crazy, the things like the fights in there, like women banding together. It's not a safe place. It's a frightening place. So being on the other end of the phone for someone that loves you, imagine going to bed every night wondering if someone you care about is safe.
Your eating disorder came back when you were in jail?
Yes.
How did you manage that?
Oh, terribly. So I was an absolute health freak before I went in. If I had known I was going in, I would have prepared myself.
When you say health freak, do you mean like orthorexia?
No, not so much. Just more of a clean eater, and I was health conscious. I wasn't like I was when I got into prison. And again, when you're in prison, you have no control. And I had such a fear of certain foods, and in there, everything's numbers, everything's sugar. There's nothing's fresh. So for me, that was like
triggering.
I've just put in jail, and now I'm being put in jail for my eating as well. And then running and things there's a 1 kilometre track around the border. And so I used to run that 8 to 10 Ks a day just to get your head clear. But then, that with not filling yourself up on fresh food and living off Vita-Weats and tuna and things, I went in there and I think I lost like 8 or 9 kilos just from being in there. A couple of times fainted and ended up in the clinic. And, that's embarrassing. But it's funny, in there, it's the one place that you can be honest to people. Like
in prison?
Yeah. People in there don't know you from a bar of soap, but they see you at your worst and you're living with the same people 24/7. They pick up on things. Belle, why don't you eat cake? Why are you swapping an apple for your cookie? Like, people pick up on things, even people you wouldn't expect. And I had friends that actually helped me with that in there with my eating. And it was a scary thing because I thought, God, I hope I don't go totally over the edge with that.
Have you made friends?
Yes, there's people that I will never forget, or I speak to two on the phone most days who have actually helped me. Two that were in very similar situations and similar lives on the outside, they call it. I speak to them, most days, but I haven't seen them. And there's people that, you don't go giving your phone number out in jail.
Let's address some myths about prison.
Yes.
Or some stories about prison. Are a lot of the inmates having relationships with each other?
Yes. So this is the best term I've heard ever. It's called gate gay. So as soon as there's a few. Look, there are some people that are genuinely.
I've heard of gay for the stay.
Yeah, and gate gay.
Gate gay.
And I think it's that thing that some people are genuinely in there and find love, and it's actually the sweetest thing to watch. But then I think on the other hand, it's comfort. And people that are doing a long sentence, for them, that's their entertainment, that's their life. I was with women who were there who have got life sentences. So what do you think's going to happen? And it might not be like a physical romantic relationship, but it's almost like a companionship. And that was a really interesting thing to watch.
What about your physical safety? Were you seen as an at-risk prisoner?
I had some moments that were...
Because you'd been in the media.
Yes.
You were...
And people knew.
Blonde and pretty and young.
I don't know about that. But yes, I definitely did have a target on my back because I was well-spoken, and I also was just oblivious to everything going on. So if someone could pull something over me, they would. And then I had an incident with one woman in Silverwater where I was physically, held up. But if you call an officer, you're then being they call it a dog. So that would have made my whole sentence, I would have been labelled that, so you have to write it out. And that's probably the worst.
Did someone tell you to do that, or you just worked it out?
I worked it out. You've got to be so street smart, and you have to have a filter on everything you say. So you don't want to give information about your life outside, about your case, about what you have. There are some unbelievable people in there. There's people that I met in there that, one, don't deserve to be there, but others too that just are beautiful souls. But then there's the others that will come out. A lot of people have drug addictions, and I think they could potentially get information about where you live and things, need money one day. Oh, let's go and find that girl that,
What's the average day like in prison?
So every afternoon you're locked in at 3 o'clock and you're not let out till 8:30 the next morning. In between that, there's no cameras. So you're locked in with 12 people. This is in Dilwyn, Silverwater's maximum. So you're locked in from 2 till 8. But there's no cameras in a cell or in your block or your wing, they call it. So if something happens, you're in quite a lot of trouble. But there's a system within inside the system. There's women in there that you think would be the toughest, scariest problem people, but they actually keep it safe.
How do they do that?
People in there are they like to follow the rules, as in within the hierarchy of if someone's being picked on, it's not cool. So there is a level of, this person's quite, I had that, when I was in Silverwater, this woman with a terrible, terrible drug habit was injecting herself while I was in my first 2 weeks of quarantine. And quarantine is, with COVID, you have 45 minutes, you're allowed out a day if you're lucky, into a tiny confined space with a bit of air, if you're lucky. So you're with someone the whole time. This woman said to me, she used to call me Tinkerbell, and she said, "Tinkerbell, you're wrapped up in cotton wool. I don't want you to see this." So she'd keep me safe. And this woman, I figured out, was one of the kingpins, and she used to come and check on me every day, which was a beautiful thing. Come on, Tink, how are you? Is anyone bothering you? And those kind of people you just think, I'm so thankful for.
Do you get very bored?
You know what? You don't have time to be bored because you are constantly in either fight or flight, wondering what's going on, or there's always a drama. If something goes missing, it's usually the biggest fights are over milk. So you get food at 11 o'clock every day, and that lasts you 24 hours.
Oh, so you just get food once a day?
Once a day.
So it's not like in Orange is the New Black where you go into the
No, you're given a ration pack. And
what's in there?
Oh, God. A piece of fruit if you're lucky, 600 mils of milk, a quarter of a loaf of bread, and whatever the food is for the day. So nothing's fresh. There's no salad. There's no veggies. And it's sad because I think it would be so cheap to feed people nutritious food, all the odd boxes at Harris Farm. There's vegetables getting thrown out, but it's all cooked by the men's prison and then it's sent over and then reheated. There's not much nutrition in there.
Do you work?
You do. So there's a thing called buy-ups, which is where at Dilwinia you can do a food order once a week. You can spend $100 a week and you can buy anything sort of long life, so milk, biscuits, cream, baked beans. I lived off tuna and Rite-O-Eats and tin corn, which was like a treat.
And that's what you have to buy as extra. Did people send you money?
Yeah, so you can have an amount put in per month and that's the limit. And then once you've spent that, tough. So it's like a mini supermarket there, and they pack for all the other jails. So you can do that job. You can do ground maintenance, which is gardening, which is sort of the job you don't want to do because it's working with everyone and it's where all the gossip and drama is and they're not really doing anything. I actually worked in an admin sweeper role, it was called. So I was with a lot of the officers doing work for them directly. So that was, oh God, kept me safe for, 4 or 5 hours a day.
When you were on bail, you talked about the relief that you felt when it was you finally caught and you were charged and you told your mum. But then you were convicted of lying to police and making documents saying that you couldn't meet your bail conditions because you were in a hospital.
Correct.
That's pretty
bad.
It's pretty audacious, I was going to say.
So why that happened, and there's no justifying telling you why that happened, people didn't know I was on bail. So I was trying to be at certain things, trying to cover, still I'm not on bail. So I'd report every day, which is going and signing a thing and saying you've done it for the day. But people didn't know I was on bail. So if I got told I had to be at a certain time,
Where did you need to be though?
Oh, just as in not needed to be, but if there was something on and I was going.
Like a party?
No, I didn't have much of a social life while that was all going on. But as an example, if I was away for the night or I was doing something with my partner or this, that and the other, and I wasn't honest with him about my conditions.
Didn't know.
No, he knew.
That you were on bail?
No, he knew about things were going on and to certain extents, but he didn't realise what my conditions or anything were.
So it seems like what you're saying is that you told one lie to cover another lie.
And that's what I'm saying
to cover
about
another
the whole
lie.
thing.
Since you were much younger, for how many years? 10 years?
No. It was sporadic and then it just at the end got haywire. So it wasn't always this much or there were times where there was nothing and then I'd stuff that up or something.
Each time you got caught, would you try to argue your way out of it or would you always just go and admit it straight away?
You know what? There was times where I wasn't honest and then there was times where I was relieved, as I said to you, yes, I've done this.
So when the police said these documents are forged?
I said, yeah. Even when I got charged, I probably shouldn't have said yes to so many things, but it was getting it off your chest.
But you didn't say yes to things you didn't do.
No. But I mean, as in a lot of people you learn in the court system get charges bundled and things because they say, I'll plead guilty to this and not to this and X, Y, Z, whereas I just said, I did the whole thing.
What's been the process of your relationship with your mum? How do people, there are certain people that can cut you out of their lives. I suppose your mum could have. Partners or ex-partners. What about friends that you stole from?
It's not even just the friends, it's people's friends' opinions of things too. It's not just the people you've done something wrong by, it's then they'll say something rightfully to someone and then that person goes too.
You'll meet someone new and then someone that you've stolen from will say to that person, stay away from her, she's bad news.
Yeah.
And then you lose that person.
And that happened I had people say that to my partner and he's still, and this is what I'm trying to make a point of too, we're talking about everything that I did wrong. That wasn't my whole life. As in, yes, this was a huge thing and it was all my fault, but I still am a kind and caring person and I always, the life that I had with my partner and, his kids, I put them before anyone.
You say that, but then you also say you stole from him.
Yep.
Can you see how that would be confusing to
100%.
People and to him?
Definitely, and that's what I think we had a really, really honest chat about everything the other day and it was, I think too, no one sees the hard work you put in behind over the wall,
Do you mean in prison?
Yeah, over the wall. So you sit there, I did the most unbelievable program and realised a lot about myself, but the hard thing is
What was the program?
So it was a program, like a behavioural program, and like changing behaviours, figuring out triggers.
And what did you learn about your triggers?
So I learned about myself. My biggest trigger is my self-worth, which is crazy. It sounds like a strange thing, but the more confident I feel and the better about myself I feel, the more things that go right in your life. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, right now they're doing a pilot program and their Business Australia is giving you opportunities to work, and they find a job for you, and not just a random job, they actually find a proper job that you want to align yourself with. So for me, it's women's justice. But, oh God, I need a minute.
Do you want to take some breaths?
No, it's just, oh God, it's just hearing everything that, you know, we're talking about. Like, all I can think of myself right now is like talking to you, I'm like, I must look like Cruella de Vil. I don't really care if I come across like Cruella de Vil, because at that time I was. But what I'm trying to say now is building for me is like building on my having a job, having things that make me, you know, when I start seeing people again, which has been hard, saying, you know, I'm doing this now, and small things that make you feel better about yourself is the way forward. And that's why with, you know, the people like, you learn like the love of your life, things aren't a race, it's the slow burn and putting in the hard work slowly.
What have you learned about situations that you need to avoid so as not to trigger?
In regards to committing crime, it's funny, I saw this unbelievable psychologist in the prison, and I was so lucky to actually get to see one. Like, not many people do. But I begged and begged and begged. And she literally turned my head around in there. But, God. Oh, gosh. Just lost my luck.
That's all right. You saw a psychologist.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a minute?
No, and just, oh God, it's a great thing to talk about everything, but it's also,
triggering.
yeah, it is. So with bad behaviours and being triggered, as we're talking about with bad behaviours, for me, she said to me, she said, I'm not worried. She's worked in prisons for 18 years. I'm not worried about you reoffending again at this point. She said, I'm worried about your health. For me, I can say this on air, I will never commit another crime. And you can hold that to me. Like, I want and I will have the life that I am going to create, and that does not involve crime. It might help people that are dealing with crime, but that will not be for me. And the point for me is triggers for me. You know, I'm now on Centrelink. I've got income until I get a job. Like, in the past, it was always I wasn't honest about needing help or assistance. Like, I could have asked my partner instead of putting something on a card.
Were you trying to make a certain lifestyle, look a certain way, live a certain way?
I wasn't living a certain way in that regard in my last relationship. It was more so I was just trying to keep up with a normal lifestyle at the time. I was on bail. I had no income. I didn't have anything going on. So the small things that we would do, I'd want to try and contribute because I didn't feel like whereas he didn't want me to. But I felt like I had to, and that's what's so stupid. Like, why do things like that when you don't need to? I could have so many times just said, I'm in deep trouble, can you please help me? And it would have happened from my family, from my friends, from my partner, but I could never just say that. And I think it's finally like, you've got to give in.
What does giving in look like?
Giving in looks like going to jail, paying your price, and hoping that people see you come out the other side, which takes a lot of time. And I don't expect for people to reach out or be my friend right now. I don't. It's so sad to say, but I still don't feel like I deserve the life that I want yet. I'll get it and I will earn it. But I still, I've just got out of jail. I'm now, I went to jail. It's crazy. I never knew anyone that went to jail.
Have you got any friends on this side that you had before you went in?
Do you mean...
Have people stuck by you?
Yes, they have. I've got some amazing friends and I'm really lucky, eternally grateful.
What would surprise people to know about jail? What surprised you the most?
The thing that surprised me the most is the grief in there. Like, the women, you know, you couldn't even put pen to paper about what you've seen and heard in there about people's lives, like people's parents that shot them up with heroin at 10 years old, like been molested, like you name it, it has happened. And these women know nothing better. Or, you know, they're in there with their mum and their grandma. You know, there's generations in prison. And that's something that shocks you as well. You just, the loss and the pain that some of these people have felt. Like, you see jail as someone that's gone and robbed someone or someone that's gone and just committed a crime. A lot of these people, they know no other way, or they've got no other way, or they've got, you know, they're on the street. And that's the link that I think's missing as well, as I've pointed out on many occasions to people, that it's, you know, there's a lot of help for people that are homeless, but a lot of these people are going to end up on the street. Can't we try and help them before they get to the street?
When you knew you were going to get out on parole, how far in advance did you know before your release date, and what were those days like?
So I had an appeal, and I got 4 months off my sentence. So I knew from that date, so it was in December or January this year. And the lead up, it's you don't believe, until I actually walked out the gate, I didn't believe I was leaving, because you think something bad's just going to happen. And every single girl that was leaving felt the same way. You think something's going to stop you from going that day. And I remember the roller door coming up, and they walk you to the roller door and they say, "Off you go, mate." And I was like, "Can you please come with me? Can you take me to my, you know, the person picking me up?" Like,
the roller door where? What happens on that
prison.
final day?
So you get about 15 minutes notice to put everything you have in a plastic bag. If you don't hand in a certain amount of greens, it comes out of, you know, you have to pay for it.
Certain amount of?
Oh, green clothing.
Oh,
so greens, so your jail greens, your issued clothes. If you damage them or lose them, you have to pay for them. So you take all your belongings. For me, I wrote a journal every single day while I was in there, of stories and things that happened. And I had, you know, letters. I had so much mail that I have kept. And so I was walking with all these documents and bits of, I saved up and bought Bond's chesty singlets, which is like a luxury in there. And I took them with me because I still wear them now, because I thought, I worked really hard for this singlet. I'm going to keep this. So I walked to my belongings. They go through discharge papers, give you your property back, and then they send you to the next stage and you go out a roller door, and that's it.
So who was there to meet you?
On the day that I got out. So initially there was going to be a few people, and then it ended up being my dad and his dog.
What was the first thing that you wanted to do?
The first thing I wanted to do, I thought it was jump in the ocean, and I didn't. I thought, you know what, I thought things would excite me more about, I thought I'd want to go and have, you know, my favourite food like sushi or something like that. But I still don't feel that excited by the, you know, the finer, like, things like that. It's more having a fresh piece of fruit. I went to Aldi in Mona Vale and got blueberries, blackberries and raspberries. After 8 months of having no proper fruit, that was all I wanted.
And so you go home to live with your parents?
No, I'm living by myself.
On that first night, did you have somewhere to go?
Yes. Yeah, I stayed with my mum. So my dad took me to my mum's.
And now you're living by yourself?
Yes.
How are you paying for your life?
So I'm on Centrelink, and I'm luckily where I'm living right now is I live with in a family's place until I've got my job that hopefully I'll have in a couple of weeks. I'm waiting to hear back about that. So I am living by myself in a place that I don't have to pay rent, but it's just more budgeting my Centrelink. But to be honest, I'm not spending, it sounds crazy, I'm not spending much because I'm not doing much. Like, it's been really hard adjusting. I thought that you'd get out and you just want to see people, and one of the biggest, not mistakes I made, but on the second day I got out, I had lunch with some friends in Manly, and it was just way too soon.
In what way?
I was just totally overwhelmed. You've been in a confined space for 8 months. You have no space. You haven't been outside at night or in the dark because you're locked in every day at 3. So you're never out in the dark. So being out in the, late lunch, you're sitting there and nothing feels right. Noises set you off. You feel like you've got a sign on your head that says, I just got out of jail. And I still feel like that everywhere I go. And it's awful. The best test I did was, do you know that in the past I used to try and hide things when I got into trouble. Now I've sort of gone the other way, and the only thing I cared about was my regrowth, which was so bad. And my dad took me to the hairdresser on the first day I got out. And the woman, I actually knew the owner, but I didn't know whether she'd told the woman who was doing my hair that I just got out of jail. And she kept saying to me, oh, did you just give your hair a break? Or, oh, it's a bit crooked. Who cut your hair last night? Got to a point, I said, look, I just got out of jail today. And she went, oh my God. And I said, and my friend in there cut my hair with toenail clippers, so that's why it's crooked.
Got to do what you got to do.
You do. The creativity is incredible, and they do become, there's a lot of people that I was very happy to see the last of, but some people in there, they become your rock, and they become like a family in there. And you never imagine in a place like that to feel that, but when you've had a hard day and you've got no one else to turn to, those people are the ones that get you through those hard days, and they know everything. Sorry, 2 people probably know everything about your life, but the rest know when you're having a hard day, and they'll check that you're okay. There may be fights, and there's some shocking, I've seen some shocking things in there, but there's also a lot of love.
What's the most shocking thing that you saw in your time there?
A woman in the block across from, this is so sad, there's a lot of drugs in prisons, and
that are smuggled in.
Yeah, but women that are pregnant, like a woman shot up something at 8 months pregnant and lost her baby, and she'd been sober the whole time, and I had to give her my milk every day. One, I wasn't going to drink it, but 2, because she needed extra milk for her. But she'd stayed sober for 8 months, got the temptation, and she had a stillborn. God, you see so much loss in there, and you feel lost so hard. I lost my uncle and my grandmother, who I was very, very close to, who was probably my best friend. And in there, when you've lost someone, there's nothing you can do.
Do you mean they died while you were in prison?
Yes, I lost my uncle died, and then my grandmother died 6 weeks later.
Were you able to go to the funerals?
No. I wouldn't have done that to my family, to be honest, because I would have had to go with an officer, which would have, oh God, can you imagine? But I watched the Zoom funeral of my grandmother, and that was, I'm so glad I got to be part of that, even though it was, not the right way. But I was sitting there with the chaplain watching the funeral, and I was like, this is my uncle, this is my thing, and oh, my family is so funny. But it was a funny thing watching a funeral in a prison, on a screen.
At one point you were admitted to a hospital, but as a prisoner.
Yes.
I've seen prisoners be escorted in and out of hospitals.
God.
What was that like?
Terrible. I went to Westmead Hospital on escort, and it was COVID firstly, but secondly, you've got 2 officers standing side by side you.
Are you cuffed?
Yes, you're handcuffed. And they usually don't handcuff the category that I was, but there's now a rule that if one person has to be, everyone has to be. So you're handcuffed the whole way through the hospital, and even trying to get yourself undressed, or, it's so degrading. There's officers in there. So when you leave to be escorted to hospital, you're strip searched. And then
What happens in a strip search?
Oh, God. You have so many strip searches. So head to toe naked, legs apart, feet up, cough. People have had mirrors because of drugs and things. But it's if you have your period, this is very graphic, but if you have your period, you have to pull your tampon out and show them that it's not drugs. And I've had that happen where I had my period, and that's pretty degrading. I remember this is very personal, I got my period on the first week that I was in jail, and I thought, I'm in quarantine with someone I don't know. There's no, the toilet's right in the middle of the room. You can see everything. I thought nothing is ever going to get worse than this moment. And that's how you feel with strip searches too. In the middle of the night, your officers sniffer dogs can come running through your block, and 4 a.m. they're telling you to stand up, get out of bed, and your room's being flipped upside down. Like, you know, or they're looking for tattoo guns, so they'll look over your whole body to see if people have fresh tattoos, because it's a commodity in there. People tattoo each other, and yeah.
When you were walking through the hospital, do people stare?
Oh, it was awful. I just remember thinking, what do you think of me? You know, what do you think I've done? Like trying to picture what they thought, you know, and you want to make I'm a smiley person, and you want to smile at someone, and then you think, God, they're going to probably think I'm a psycho if I smile.
When you meet people now and you tell them, I assume, that you've just come out of prison, and I imagine their first question is, what were you in there for?
What do I say? I committed fraud. And I did the wrong thing.
And what's their next question?
It's usually, do you know the funniest thing is a lot of people say, oh, what are you going to do, or this, that and the other, but the one thing seeing people in person is the change people have seen just in your personality. Like, I used to be very quick thinking, like if I was to make a decision, it'd be straight away. Now I've become I think everything through a lot more, like you've become a lot more rational. And I think now it's nice for people to see that you've come, like you're going back to yourself, or, you know, that person, as I said to you, 80% of the time was always there, but that 20% that was an absolute mess is getting less and is getting less noise, and that person is not coming back.
I noticed you're wearing green today.
Yes.
I thought you would never want to wear green again.
I said I would never wear green again, but do you know what? I just decided that there's such a stigma about people that have been to jail and, you know, living your greens, and, you know, we're all in there, there's a saying, we're all in green, like we're all equal. And I thought, why would I not wear green? Like, I want that stigma to change, so why should I'm disgusted by what happened with myself, but I know who I am and I know who I'm becoming, and I want this to be a part of that. So I want to wear green.
What about your victims? How do you feel about them now?
I feel exactly the same as I did the day that I went in. Like, I hope one day that I can speak to them in person and say, you know, again, I'm sorry. But I hope more so that, you know, I hope they see that this person that committed those crimes is not going to do that again and doesn't do it again. And I hope that one day they might look back and be proud.
Will you pay them back?
Yes, so I am. I'm almost paid off. So I was on a work development order in prison for working, and with all the programs I was doing, you actually pay off $1,000 a month, which is, you have to do a certain amount of, I think it's 25 hours a week. So I'm paying back compensation at the moment, and I've still got a few thousand to go.
To everyone?
Yep, to everyone, to the court-ordered compensation, which in my letter of apology when I was to the magistrate, I said I insist on paying that, you know, back. And I think for me too, you know, people think, oh, if there's a way of not paying that back, great. But no, because if you pay that back, it's one more thing that you know you've done to make something at least a tiny bit right.
They'll probably be listening to this. What would you say to them?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and I can't wait to show you that it happened for a reason.
Thanks for listening to No Filter. If this is the first time that you've listened to the show, we have a lot of episodes for you to scroll back through in the feed. Please consider subscribing, and if you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. The assistant producer of No Filter is Lucy Neville. The executive producer of No Filter is Eliza Ratliff, and I'm Mia Friedman. I'll see you on the Mamamia app.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.